Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lion's Den. This is the Weekly Roar. It's great to have you back this week in the Lion's Den. Today, I'm going to speak about an extremely important trait to have or to develop as a leader, especially in our world today when we're often faced with leading through difficult times. How important is perseverance to leadership? Today on the Weekly Roar, I'll talk all about it. Before we jump into that, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Greg Storch. I'm the owner of Lion Enterprise, host of the Weekly Roar, and founder of a worldwide bartered coaching program called The Helping Hand. I'm a certified professional leadership coach and a certified leadership speaker and trainer. Oh, and as a friendly reminder, you can find all of these video resources on my website at lion-enterprise.com. Just look for the Lion's Pride Library and check them all out. All right, everyone, let's talk about perseverance and its role in leadership. This past weekend, my wife and I headed up to the local mountains to go camping for the night. It was a great way to escape the heat here in Vicenza. Now, as we drove up to the campsite, we passed by cyclist after cyclist pedaling their way up the steep mountainside. Now, we were driving to 3,300 feet on Saturday, so this was a pretty good-sized mountain. And as I drove the curvy roads all the way up to the top, I passed by bike riders of all sorts. There were men, women, couples, and even children, all trying to bike their way to the top. And they also varied in equipment. Some were riding road bikes, others were riding mountain bikes, some wore biking jerseys, while others were wearing regular shorts and t-shirts. Mile after mile, we passed riders making their way up these hills. Now, they weren't going very fast at all, but they kept consistently pedaling their bikes. All of them were pedaling away in an effort to reach their destination. I didn't pass one biker who was stopped on the roadside. And despite all the differences in these cyclists, there was one thing they all had in common: perseverance. They all had a drive to reach the summit. We've also seen a lot of this recently during the Olympic Games in Japan, a world event that occurred in the height of the worldwide pandemic. To even pull it off reeks of perseverance. Well, since I brought up the Olympics, let me rewind the clock a bit to 1956 in Melbourne and 1960 in Rome. That's where they held the Olympics in those years. Even though both occurred before I was born, believe it or not, I grew up hearing the name of a young lady by the name of Wilma Rudolph. Now, if you want to hear the power of perseverance, listen to this. For those of you who might know her name, but not her story, let me tell you about Wilma. See, Wilma was born in Tennessee, and she was one of 22 kids. She was actually number 20 to be exact. She was sickly as a kid, and she suffered battles with polio, scarlet fever, and even pneumonia. It was polio that caused her to have to wear a leg brace. Her doctors even told her that she would never walk again. Defying the odds, Wilma learned to walk by the age of 12, and she took up athletics, where she fell in love with, of all things, running. Only 4 years after learning how to walk and having to spend her childhood in a leg brace, Wilma Rudolph made her Olympic debut at the 1956 Olympic Games in Melbourne, Australia. She was 16 years old. Now, in Melbourne, she won the bronze medal in the 4x100 meter relay. 4 years later, at the Olympics in Rome, she won 3 gold medals running the 100 meter, the 200 meter, and the 4x100 meter relay. Now, if that isn't a story of perseverance, I don't know what is. From the cyclists this past weekend that I saw riding to the summit of a steep mountain, to a crippled little girl who defied the odds to win Olympic gold in running, we're surrounded by examples of perseverance almost everywhere. Now, it got me thinking about the role of perseverance and how it plays in our success as leaders. I often talk about leadership traits like trust and consistency, but I don't think I've ever focused in on perseverance and whether it plays a key in leadership success. So when it comes to competency in leadership, we often hear about the skills or knowledge needed, and most of them can be developed with training or coaching. But I think that a big part of becoming a successful leader has to do with perseverance. And that may not be such an easy trait for a leader to develop. Maybe this has come to my attention more since it seems we're living in a world full of crises. COVID-19 has forced us all to become better leaders, even if it's just leading ourselves. Perseverance is a trait that we all should consider when it comes to leadership because it can serve as a key to success when things aren't going the way we thought they should, and they require more of our focus and attention. When I talk about perseverance, I'm talking about consistency in persistence when it comes to the actions that we have to take, even when we face difficulties or obstacles to achieving our goals. It's more than just trying hard. Perseverance is the willpower to not give in and never quit, and it comes from within. It's that inner spirit that helps us refuse to give up or accept defeat. Now that I say that in that way, it's making even more sense why this is such a critical trait in our world today. We depend on our leaders to stay the course and not shy away from challenging times. This is what Newt Gingrich said about it. Perseverance is the hard work you do after you get tired of doing the hard work you already did. I love it. That quote makes me think about those people riding their bikes up the mountain this past weekend. At one point on the mountain, there were 14 switchbacks. Now, for those of you who don't know what a switchback is, think about this zigzagging up a mountain. Every time you make a turn, you're climbing up another incline. It was their perseverance, their desire to work hard after already working hard in order to get to the top that kept those pedals moving. Now, when it comes to leadership, this is more than just being a good decision maker. I'm talking about having an unwavering and steadfast devotion to a goal. So much so that when faced with an unexpected obstacle, they push harder towards the goal. Just think about it for a second. If a leader doesn't have the ability to persevere in the face of adversity, they don't stand a chance of leading their team to the finish line, accomplishing that goal they've set. And so today, I want to share some of the ways that leaders can develop their leadership skills in the area of perseverance. Now, typically, when anyone wants to get better at something, they start taking the necessary actions that contribute to increasing their skill level in that area, right? Well, it's not the case when I talk about perseverance. If you've ever listened to my talks about the importance of your inner circle and how to properly maintain it, then you've heard me talk about something called addition through subtraction. Sometimes we have to do away with things in order to get something else. In other words, sometimes we have to give up to go up. Well, when it comes to our inner circles, that might mean having to let go of some relationships in order to have others that contribute more to your growth and success. We have to subtract in order to add. Well, I would tell you that the same thing is true when I talk about developing ourselves in the area of perseverance. We have to focus on what we need to subtract in order to add perseverance to our skill set. Think about the last time you tried to do something that you found hard to do, and then ask yourself, did you end up giving up on it or did you keep at it? The reason I'm asking is because one of the things we need to subtract is being okay with giving up. It's easy for us to take the path of least resistance or just give up and move on to the next thing. But we have to fight that urge to give up. I'd even encourage you to start fostering a mindset of wanting to take the path less traveled, so to speak. Take that difficult road ahead without fear of failure. When we don't allow ourselves to give up easily and when we shift our focus to rising to the challenge, it helps us develop our perseverance muscle. The more we do it, the stronger it gets. I read a book once called Sometimes You Win and Sometimes You Learn. In it, author John C. Maxwell wrote, "Life is hard. Life is hard for everyone, but it can be harder for some more than others." If you think that life should be easy, then there's another thing that you're going to need to subtract in order to add perseverance to your trait list. Although all of us would love for life to just move along easily and without problems, the reality is that it isn't, and it doesn't. I think we all know that. That's not really a realistic expectation that life will be easy. And that's why it's better if we start planning for problems or obstacles. When you set a goal or start something new, spend time thinking about the things that could get in your way of reaching your destination. I ask my coaching clients that question all the time. What do you think might get in your way of doing what it is you want to do? That's intentionally meant for them to consider barriers so that they can better prepare for them when they happen. The worst that can happen is that we're left pleasantly surprised when we plan for the worst and it never happens. So remember, life isn't easy, and that's okay. It wasn't meant to be. When I started running again a couple of years ago, I set a goal of participating in a half marathon. I picked the race, I entered, and I started training for it. All of my workouts were designed to prepare me for that one race. Well, COVID hit and the race was postponed. It's actually been postponed twice, and I eventually stopped running. My problem was that I saw the half marathon as a final destination for my running. When the race didn't happen, I no longer had a destination to shoot for, so the reason for running kind of just disappeared, and so did my workouts. That taught me a valuable lesson when it comes to adding perseverance to my leadership traits. And that is that we have to subtract the belief that our success, or even the success of our teams, is a final destination. Think of it more as a journey with milestones along the way. As we reach each milestone, we reevaluate, adjust, and continue on. It's perseverance that keeps us moving forward one step at a time without the thought of giving up. Before you know it, we become successful, at least in the eyes of others. You know, I love that saying that it took me 20 years to become an overnight success. My advice: subtract the thought of success as a final destination and start to view it as a journey that will never end. The shift in perspective will help cultivate the trait of perseverance. Resiliency is something that the U.S. Army teaches to all of their soldiers. It's part of the military culture. Resiliency is our ability to face obstacles and deal with them instead of getting defeated by them. As you can probably imagine, our servicemen and women are professionals in the area of resiliency. But that isn't always the case in the civilian world, especially when it comes to leaders. When we experience low personal resiliency, it can result in high frustration when obstacles get in our way. Leaders have to be able to set an example of resiliency for their followers to emulate. So we have to avoid allowing those obstacles and setbacks to throw us off our game. This is another muscle that has to be worked in order to strengthen it. Resiliency is built over time as we encounter more and more obstacles. How we deal with them is the key to building it up. So this is another thing that we need to subtract if we want to add perseverance to our leadership traits. Subtract low resiliency by shifting your perspective. Now, one of the things I did to help strengthen my resiliency was I stopped thinking in terms of why is this happening to me, and started thinking in terms of why is this happening for me? It's simply a shift from being a victim. You know, I read an article about leadership qualities recently, and the author, Josh Seidman, wrote something that really resonated with me. So I wanted to share it with you. He wrote that everyone has limitless potential. It's the level of perseverance that either grows or decreases that level of potential. Perseverance is the key to achieving great things in our lives. I've never seen anything of lasting value get accomplished without it. You know, it took Thomas Edison 1,000 failures before he invented a viable light bulb. Imagine what our world would be like today had he quit after failing 999 times. Now, people are going to oppose us. We will experience financial setbacks, time pressures, sickness, and any other challenges that you can think of in life. And some of the biggest obstacles are going to come from within. You know, my friend Sean Douglas calls it the inner bully, and he coaches people on how to hush it. That inner bully can be self-doubt, insecurity, carelessness, worry, all of those things. And this is why it's even more important that you work hard at giving yourself the approval to succeed. So remember, perseverance is a refusal to quit. It's getting up every time we fall down. Oh, we're going to trip and stumble. There's no doubt about that. But what matters is getting back up again. And by the way, I get the idea behind that Japanese proverb that says, fall 7 times, get up 8, but that makes absolutely no sense to me in the literal sense. You literally cannot get up 8 times if you've only fallen 7. Am I right? Anyway, I digress. It's easy for perseverance to be misunderstood. It's not the same thing as us just simply trying hard. It's more than that. It's this determination that comes from our gut. It's a determination to never give up and to never accept the failure of quitting. A good leader is someone who perseveres and is in it for the long run. I don't want to follow someone who's going to give up at the first sign of trouble. That doesn't instill confidence at all, does it? Now, I like to think of perseverance as being satisfied with being unsatisfied. Our perseverance is what allows us to see obstacles as either opportunities for failure or success. It's the catalyst we need to shift from mediocrity to excellence. Carbon under pressure becomes a diamond, and it's the fire that hardens steel. So the next time you consider running away because you have a fear of failure, remember that failure is the gateway to success, and perseverance is what results when we begin to see it that way. As Dale Carnegie noted, most of the important things in the world have been accomplished by people who have kept on trying when there seemed to be no hope at all. Well, that's going to do it for me today. Thank you all for supporting me and joining me in the Lion's Den. If you want to keep running to the roar, then join me again next week. All you have to do is just come on back to the Lion's Den next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you for supporting me and watching the Weekly Roar today. I appreciate all of you. Now, until we meet again, remember, be powerful, but stay poised just like a lion. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.